Okay, picking up where we left off on page 153, talking about the difference between a meter and a progress. And admittedly, there's not that much difference. The meter could be any numbers anywhere, and the progress is really designed for percent. I mean, it really is designed for, how far along you are. So if I made a min of 5 and a max of 10, I'm sorry, if I had a value of 5 and a max of 10, it'd come out 50%, right? Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about is background images. I want to put an image in the background of my web page. In order to do this, I'm going to need a graphic file, and I'm probably not going to use one of those photographs, right? Because that would be, really ridiculous. So I'm going to need a photograph or an image or something that's a little bit more subdued. So I'm going to grab some files from the student data files section rather than using one of these things. So student data files, chapter 4, I think I'm going to use, that'll do. Okay. So here's a little logo file, and I'm going to go back to Visual Studio, and like I did before, I'm just going to drag and drop this guy in here. So I'm just going to drag him. So now I have this thing called Trillium Solo. Cool. Whew. All right. So I want to go in and do a background for a particular item. Let's just do the background for the entire body, except this time let's do it up here. We've been doing the other style of CSS. So how's this work now? I go up to the head and I use the style element now, not an attribute. And then you have to use a selector, right? So I'm going to use body as the selector. And then you have curly braces. Remember all that? Cool. So I'm going to use a thing called background. And if you start off with a background image, as an example, how you select the background image is a little weird. Before you do colon and you do like a source equals, well, you don't really have equal signs inside of the CSS, right? I mean, it's colon and a bunch of stuff. And so for reasons that are really difficult to tell, they use this thing called URL. And the URL is now the actual image that you want, which in this case is Trillium. Okay, and it looks a little weird, doesn't it? Because, before the text for these kind of things, I don't really have any more, doggone it. But anyway, the location where these things were in hrefs and, equal signs, and okay. It's just different. All right, so let's run this and see what it looks like. It's probably not going to look all that good. Okay, better than the cat, but yeah, that's pretty wild. All right, but there's a lot of things you can do here. You can use background color if you want instead of doing that. Let's just continue. All right. So instead of having a background image, okay. This is kind of an unusual thing that's. Let's do background color this time. So background color, and then I could have anything. I'm not very good at color names. I'm just going to pick one. How about dark? Well, I want something that's going to have a high contrast. How about this goofy looking pink thing? Dark salmon. Okay. Whew. That'll look maybe a little bit better. Not that much better, to tell you the truth, but some better. So let's go back to doing the image thing one more time. So I'm going to go back to doing image, just like I had it before. So background, image, and I'm going to use that little URL thing. And I'm going to go ahead and tell it the Trillium guy. Except this time maybe I want to spend a little bit more energy on how we're going to do the repeat. There's a thing called, on page 155, there's a way you can go in here and tell it how you want this to repeat. So if I say background, and get down here to the R's, background repeat. And you can do, the default is take that image and make it go all the way on the x-axis and all the way on the y-axis. In other words, fill the entire thing. I could just say, I want it only in the X direction, which means, you know, just this way. All right, let's take a look at that. See what that looks like. And I get a little border across the top, which, whew, thank goodness, looks a little better. Goodness. I could say repeat Y, which means, you know, go this direction. And that'll look pretty cool too. It goes down this side. Cool. All right. There's a repeat, of course, means both X and Y. And then there's one called no repeat, which means it'll just be stuck up there in the corner. So you told it was a background, but you told it not to repeat, so it'll just be one little doodad up in the corner. So let's try that. And I'm going to go here and say no repeat. And it'll doing just one little doodad up in the corner. Cool. All right. You can also tell it the position. So this works really well when you have no repeat. Okay. If you have repeat, well, I'll tell you what. Let's do repeat on the Y direction, because that's the easy one to look at. It won't hurt my poor little eyeballs. So now I have repeat Y. So now I want to tell it where that thing is, the position. So background, and I should be able to find. Oh, spell it right. It'd be helpful. Background position. So background position would be, where do you want it? So let's say I want it in the Y direction, but I want it on the right-hand side. So this is a cool little trick. And so we'll do that. And so I get the Trillium thing, but it's on the right-hand side now. Woo! Okay. I'm going to close this off. I'm getting too many of those guys. All right. So that essentially is how backgrounds work. Yeah, there's an awful lot of other things. You can, you know, pick colors, and so I can have a background color and an image simultaneously. Let's see if we can find a background color which is kind of sort of similar to that. So not that it really matters. I'm going to go ahead and do this kind of in order. Background color. And we're going to have to, well, I'm going to have to, I don't know about you guys. I'm going to have to kind of stretch to see if I can find a color that's kind of sort of like the Trillium guy. That's probably not anywhere near close, but let's see what it looks like. It probably won't look too bad. Well, I was wrong. That's horrible. But anyway, the idea is you can have both a background color and a background image. And in theory, you'd like if you were using a photographic tool like Photoshop, you'd use a little eyedropper thing to click on that color and get the color signature. You know, how many R, G, and B values are. You'd write those down. You'd come here and you'd pick a color that exactly matched that. Okay? I'm not going to do that here. But that's how it's done. If you want this to look seamless, that color green to be seamless with that, basically that's what, again, using another tool, most likely not one that's part of your HTML toolkit, so to speak. So on 158, they talk a little bit more about images. There are some types of images that you can make a hotspot. And, you know, a hotspot is, here's a map of the United States, and it says, click your state to continue. And so you move the mouse, and you click on the state of Texas, and it launches whatever. Those are kind of cool, because they kind of, instead of having a list of hyperlinks, you know, A for Alaska, you know, and just go Alabama in alphabetical order, they basically show you a map, and you get to click on what you want. There are some problems with that, and that is there's no real way to do this in an accessible way. I mean, there really is not. I mean, I can't say click on your state if the graphics are turned off. It just can't happen. So I'm going to go through it to show you a little bit how it works. But in practice, we're not really going to do that. So essentially what it would happen is when I came to one of my my graphics, let me put this guy back in since I kind of sort of need him. Okay, cool. Actually, what I'll do, I'm gonna get this outside of the figure, and I'll comment that back. Okay, cool. So here's my image guy. So what I would do is I would create a new tag that's called an image map. So I would go in here and I'd have a map, and I have to give it a name, and that sounds a little weird. A name, and it's going to be called, I don't know, my map. And for reasons that I'm not willing to explain, I'm also going to give it an ID, and I'm going to give it the same name just to make things not complicated. So now I have a map. Okay, so the map is designed to have like an area that you click on, right? Some area, and I'm going to cheat because I don't really. Okay, so I'm going to go in here and put an area, and so my area is going to have area is going to have lots of things you can do here. One of them for the area is you have to tell it the boundaries of this thing. So it's going to have the hyperlink, the href of where it's going. And then, it's where it is on the map. It's this many pixels over, and is this many pixels high, this many pixels down, and all that stuff. And then, after I'm done with all that, I'm going to have to tell this image here, I'm going to have to tell it that it is now attached to a map, or associated would be more term. I have this map thing, and now I have to tell the image, oh, by the way, you are now using the map, which is the part that's kind of weird. And so what you would do is somewhere inside your image tag, doesn't really matter where, you would go in here and say use map, and I'm assuming it's a class name, right? # for class name, because I'm sorry, not a class name, actual ID. Because there's probably not going to be more than one of these things. So this would be my map. Okay. I'm not going to demo this because it's kind of dumb. I may ask you a question on an exam, but it won't be something where you'd have to do it. So that's how those things work. All right. Normally you would never code these things by hand. There'd be a little utility where you bring up the graphics and you draw the outline of the state of Texas, and it records that and stores it for you. Because no one's going to do that by hand. There's one more thing that's kind of cool, and that is a favorite icon. Let's say, for example, that when I show this, okay, I'll render this page as it is. I'm not even sure that's going to work. Okay, cool. Right now, all I have is this little eyeball thing. I don't have a graphic file that points to this at all. So most people like a little graphic thing to show up. Plus, if you were to save this in your favorites, then that's what the little icon would be. All right, so let's assume you have an icon file and you want to put it in here. All right, so I've got an icon file that I'm going to use. Well, I'll tell you what, let's just use the Trillium guy one more time. And I'm going to switch back to using Internet Explorer, just for no particular reason whatsoever. So if I'm going to use Trillium as my thing, up here in the head, why am I doing this in the head? Because things that go in the head aren't directly rendered in the page. All right, because this is not rendered in the page, it's rendered in the title bar across the top. Well, actually, the tab across the top. So somewhere in here, I'm going to do a link. And links are link is a very versatile thing. You have to tell it lots of things. You have to tell it what it is you're doing. And it's called relation. And relation is a little weird. Basically, what I want is an icon. So type would have been a better thing. Like this is a link. What type of link is it? Oh, well, it's a relation thing. But you'll see in just a minute that does not work. And then I have to tell where the thing is, so that would be href, and then I'm going to use the Trillium guy. And then I have to tell it what type it is. And this is the type that gets a little type. Ha ha ha. I have to tell it that it's an image type. So it is an icon, and then I tell it what kind of a thing I'm expecting to see, and then I close this guy off. Okay, this is, remember now, this is one of the self-closing tags. So if I do this now and render this in, actually I guess I need to run this once to force it to switch over. And so now I have a little Trillium here up here in the corner, and if I was to save this guy, which I'm not going to do, then I get a Trillium logo as part of my favorites. Okay, we've reached a good stopping point. We'll pick this thing up again in just a few.